Good evening and welcome to Basementside. I'm your host, Deeg, and I'm here today to talk about Planetside 2's Outfit Wars with Legends of Planetside 2 Recursion. I'm here with Sayl, Disenfranchised, and Therum. How do you gentlemen do today?
We're
Doing
good.
great.
Glad to hear that. Are you guys managing to get some rest after the massive push to compete in this thing?
Oh,
What's
absolutely.
rest?
What's rest? I think a lot of people were asking themselves that question during this drive. Um, so the Outfit Wars match itself was on the 11th, not this past weekend, but the one prior. And we're looking towards a new season coming up at the start of next month. And so I think this is a good moment for us as a community to step back, look at the experience, and think about what went well, what didn't, what we learned from what we went through. But in order to do that, it's good to have these conversations. So I reached out to Recursion, wanted to see if they had an angle they wanted to present or anything they thought would be worth talking about. And I think we're going to have a great show, guys. So before we actually get started into the nitty gritty of the Outfit Wars experience, I want to give you gents a chance to introduce yourself one by one, starting with Sayl.
All right. My username is Sayl. I've been playing the game since release. I've been a member of Recursion for like 6 or 7 years or something, like a horribly long time. I was the platoon leader in Desolation, and my rank is director.
Great. Disenfranchised.
My name is Disenfranchised, obviously. I've been playing this game since release, since the early beta days. My current rank in Recursion is Officer. I've been a part of Recursion for the last year.
Excellent. And last but not least, Therum.
I've been playing since launch, and I've been in Recursion, I think, 6 years now. Just about. I'm an officer, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
So we got some old hands of the Planetside community here today. Um, I actually will go last. I'm Deeg. I'm the one talking, put this all together. I play some Planetside too, although compared to these guys, I'm pretty casual. Um, and but what I want to ask next is, um, I think recursion is a name that's associated with a lot of things for people. For some people, it's a really cool overlay that I'm sure you guys get nagged about to the end of the earth. For other people, it's just something you avoid when you go to bases because you don't want to get crushed. But I want to hear from your guys' perspective. What is recursion to you? Give me the recursion elevator pitch. Anyone can jump in.
I can do that one.
Go ahead.
So, for me, Recursion, it's a multi-faction, multi-server outfit. It's an emphasis on, you know, getting your average, play style into a situation where you can enjoy the game without having to compromise on maybe not everyone is taking it as serious as you, maybe no one's taking it serious at all. It's a good place, good community, filled with a lot of people that, like the game. They want to get better at the game. I mean, it's not just, an outfit for the game Planetside 2. It's not just a chat box. And that's one thing I think I really like about Recursion altogether. If I was to pitch it to someone, I would say it is an outfit that allows you to better your skills at Planetside while also being with people that have the same objective as you, which is win. I would hope that everyone's objective is eventually to win at some point. But that would be the pitch I would do.
I think Recursion is our attempt to merge a bunch of concepts that aren't really merged in any other game or way. I think, like, for instance, in a lot of lobby shooters, you grab like 6 to 10 friends and you get really good, whether it be Siege or Counter Strike or whatever, and that creates a certain behavior. And then you have like an MMO where you have like 40 people trying to raid or 40 people trying to coordinate to, down some boss. And then, that creates some behaviors. And because this is an FPS MMO, our job is to try to merge these two formulas. And so we need to scale up the FPS aspects and we need to scale up the skill aspects. And so you're trying to find that middle ground, that bullseye where you're taking from the good parts of an FPS background and taking the good parts of, say, an MMO background and creating one vision that is uniquely Planetside 2.
I really like that idea. So the shooter elements in Planetside are, I think, fairly straightforward for most people to see and understand. I wonder, Sayl, if I could ask you to expand a little on the MMO angle. A platoon in Planetside is up to 48 dudes, which is much more similar to like a large MMO raid. But I don't know if a lot of people understand um, kind of what the similarities between approaching an MMO and Planetside might look like. Could you expand upon that?
Oh yeah, it's like so. Let's talk about the triangle, right? Any MMO is going to have a triangle of like healers, damagers, and tanks, right?
Right.
Like that's the
The Holy
classic one.
Trinity.
Well, the Holy Trinity is much more complicated in this game, where it's almost like per base, and there's like soft counters and hard counters, and so the triangle looks like this crazy, almost demonic symbol that you have to kind of, like a Skyguard, for instance, is a really good counter against air to ground
Uh-huh.
ESFs, but it's not as great of a counter to a Liberator, right? And so it's like, while it's AA, and you could think you could put it into terms of like it's infantry, armor, and air, but within those realms, there's a bunch of soft and hard counters. So if you want to play it like a triangle, like if say your enemy has 10 liberators, if you brought maybe 15 ESFs, you might be able to overcome that if they were air to air spect. And if you think about it, they're spending 2 to 3 people per liberator, and you've spent less than half of that in ESFs. And so, that's an example of how you can get a force multiplication out of this soft and hard counter methodology. And so, you're looking at a very complex PvP MMO, and I think that's something that is probably more frustrating about us than maybe say our shooting aspect. Is that sometimes we're leveraging vehicles or armor or air, and we try to merge all those things. Does that answer your question?
Definitely. Yeah, the Holy Trinity is one of those concepts that I think is really well understood in the gaming world. You tank to soak up damage, you do damage to deal damage, or you heal to replenish damage. Planetside takes that idea and says, well, how many little gameplay niches can we find in this sandbox shooter space? Um, and we saw that in action in the outfit war itself. But I don't want to zoom straight into that because I know that's going to be a nice chunky topic. I want to build the tension a little bit. Therum, do you have anything you want to add about recursion?
Uh, well, Cell kind of hit the central point of just the MMO FPS being unique from what you might get in an MMO or what you might get in an FPS. It's like I think what draws me back to this game is just that combination, really, where you're going to like a lobby shooter. You can play the same maps over and over again. It can get pretty competitive, but ultimately, there's not really similar moments in other games to when you're on a point with a dozen people getting pushed by several dozen people for 30 seconds that feel like an hour, and you're just out there doing battle. It's insanely fun. And yeah, like that, just agreement, I guess, on that's what's fun in PlanetSide 2 is the commonality between a lot of the members in Recursion, I think.
what you're saying is something that I've heard from other folks who love Planetside too, as well. The unique combination of it's a PvP shooter, but it's big. The scale is large, and it's so sandboxy compared to a lobby shooter like a Counter Strike or an Overwatch, where it's a little more transactional of an experience.
Yeah, exactly. Or like in the way individual skill I think interacts as well with just the chaos of the environment is also kind of unique and at times both frustrating and another time great. And I think that probably has to do with just whereas say an MMO would have RNG simulate the chaos of a really complex system, in Planetside when ambusher light assault jump jets up towards the railings in the tech plant and shotguns you right in the chest when you have like 20 friendlies looking in that direction. There's actually like a very clear chain of events that are all just causally related. I guess it's not just on its face RNG, you rolled wrong, you die. It's circumstances added up to just this crazy scenario where stuff like that make the game pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah. And the nature of having all that chaos and so much stuff going on means that there's I feel like an enormously high skill ceiling of ways you can learn to have a better impact on the game, either by your individual agency or working with others, right? And recursion seems to be like one of the better manifestations of that.
I think learning the gameplay mechanics so that you both individually and as a group, so you can better manipulate them to dictate the terms of gameplay is just bringing order to the chaos of it all is just in itself insanely fun.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great introduction to recursion. Thanks, guys. The next place I think would be interesting to go potentially would be to talk about the start of this whole Outfit Wars experience. Um, I know a lot of people's first blush with it was when the content creators got access to it and started streaming it. Some folks were involved in the alpha testing. Um, how early did Recursion get involved with Outfit Wars?
Uh, we saw some of those tests that you're talking about. It's interesting because I think from a historical perspective, we've been involved in Outfit Wars since they were invented. I mean, we did MLG War Report and all kinds of events when the company at the time was posturing towards a competitive mindset. In fact, we would make strats around the Nexus, which was the first battle island. I mean, it existed. We've been there, and I think we invented recursion, to play in the Nexus, and through that, uh, potential competitive future, we built the team without the game to play yet. And so in some ways Outfit Wars is sort of it's a validation of what we've always tried to bring to the table. And so it's really great that the current company, Rogue Planet Games, is finally implementing this thing that I think a lot of us wanted from the get-go.
I like that word you used, validation. One of I think the PlanetSide 2 community as a whole has been through a lot over the last few years with the direction of the game and its success or lack of it. And I know it's plain to see if you've been involved in the community at all, the frustration folks have had with where it's going. And um, it's interesting to hear you talk about how you were there for the start of an Outfit War, the whole concept of it. And how people have been trying to use Planetside to compete as long as Planetside's been around. Um, and now that Rogue Planet has picked up that torch and made it part of the game, um, a lot of folks who thought Planetside was never going to be for them are, I think, are maybe reevaluating that. Is that the sense that you guys get as well?
I
Oh,
think
for sure.
I think from the early onset when like you said, the first tests were done, the content creators were showing it, showcasing it. I think a lot of people were kind of just excited to play Planetside again. I think the reason for that is just the Outfit Wars provides some semblance of an end game to work toward, and an interesting one at that, potentially. And so I got a lot of people excited early on. Um, in terms of the rules of the qualification, all that, it's a different subject entirely. Like how it actually played out,
Absolutely.
historically. But everyone was really excited just to play Planetside. Honestly,
Right. Just need a good excuse. I think a lot of people feel
mm-hmm.
like that's the way I felt like. Um, I was last fall. I was coming off of dipping my toes into WoW Classic. I decided to take that plunge when it came out because I love big gaming
Mm.
communities, and I pulled out of it at what I thought was a good point. But I was kind of between games coming into the start of the year, looking at Planetside like I always do. Like, am I going to get back into Planetside now? And then I heard about this Outfit Wars thing, and I was like, oh yeah, I gotta find out what this is about. Um, I So you guys saw it and immediately were excited to get to jump in. Um, let's talk a little bit about how what was next for Outfit Wars. So it was part of an escalation update. And this escalation update included not just the Outfit Wars match itself and the framework to get there, but it also included the Bastion, which is, I think, been a huge rallying point for most people who play the game. What a cool feature. We got Star Wars now, boys, is what I keep hearing. And the war asset system. Um, I don't really want to give a lot of. I don't really. I want to focus more on the outfit war side of the equation, but I wonder if I can get a hot take from you guys on how you feel the Bastion and war assets have affected the game.
Okay, hot take. I think prior to their implementation, the outfit system did not serve much, if any, actual gameplay functionality. Meaning to say that if you had 24 people, whether they were in the same outfit or not, did not impact gameplay very much mechanically, at a base or in a fight. But now, them being in the same outfit, having a shared resource pool, etc., is actually a mechanical way that the social apparatus of an outfit can now interact with the game. I think that's a good thing, ultimately.
And how have you seen that new emphasis on outfit mechanics drive outfits to engage with the game? That's a very broad question. Um,
I've noticed a lot of interaction of older outfits trying to come back and recruit, and they're trying to resurrect themselves out of the grave, which is great. It's great to see that there's now outfits emerging, but more importantly, more important than the older outfits coming back, there's new outfits. And when we think of a new outfit, we think of like 10 dudes, that are trying to get something started, but it never really ever goes anywhere. But with this new format, I think there's definitely, there's an ability for, new outfits to actually make have a name for themselves instead of just getting lost in translation with, the server, whatever server you're on, main, big fits and mid fits and elite fits, whatever you want to call them. Oftentimes those newer outfits get lost in translation. I think now's a good chance for them to start making a name for themselves.
I think it's tough to talk about this without saying at least some context with regards to just what's implied by the social apparatus of an outfit interacting with, right? Prior to the resource system and all that, there would be, if you were just purely concerned with pound per pound capability, there would be no reason to include a just a new player, or even like a subpar, sub-average player. There would be no reason within the parameters of wanting to be as effective pound per pound as possible. If all you cared about was raw effectiveness, there'd be no reason to refuse somebody within those parameters. But now, it's more interesting than those raw general terms of pound per pound being only slightly more nuanced than just raw effectiveness. Now, including a new player, right, ultimately requires you to possibly train them or teach them how to play the game so that they can become a more useful element of the outfit. And I think ideally there'd probably be other outfits doing the same. And so if you can't provide that type of environment, where someone can learn the game and have fun, then they'll probably go elsewhere. And I think there's probably a lot of just thoughts in the community out there of how the system wasn't adapted perfectly to how the outfits have formed over these years. But I think just for whatever the future may hold, it's not just necessary, but almost a good thing, really, that outfits have much more incentive now. Outfits that are too closed off, too insular and exclusive, have reasons to open up, and outfits that are just your mainstay type of Zerg fits, right, will by extension probably have reason to just put a little bit more effort into each individual player, and just which will in turn make each individual player's experience more meaningful, etc., etc. I think it's overall a good thing.
Yeah,
the outfit resources and whatnot.
Making better Planetside.
I'd have to agree.
I really like one thing you said, Therum, about the perhaps inclination to ignore the potential of a new player without these outfit incentives that has been flipped. And the fact that outfits have a goal to drive towards that makes them engage with new people, and how that really feeds back to one of Planetside's biggest forever problems, which is holding on to new people and showing them how to play the game, right?
Yeah, I think it's the incentives towards players really is I think it was part of the issue. Like, we would, in Recursion, get the odd new player here or there, run the open squad here or there, and get some players who you just teach them the raw fundamentals and they can figure out a lot for themselves. It's just the game is kind of complex, and prior to the outfit resource system, there weren't any obvious goals for an outfit to look at and structure their gameplay towards. And so in addition to having to teach a new player all the gameplay fundamentals and all that, they'd have to teach them at least like some rudimentary like philosophy almost, I guess, with regards to like how we play the game, right? And you see this kind of manifest in just, for example, the idea of like the QRF outfits. This is what we do.
QRF?
And the quick reaction force, like people that basically redeploy constantly and do a lot of gal drops and are basically about moving across the map super fast. That was kind of a common outfit culture that developed, I think, because numerous factors, ranging from like the fact that having everyone redeploy to a galaxy gets all 12 of your squad mates in one neat place, which helps keep everyone together and in the same base, to just the fact that galaxy can get you anywhere you want to go on the map. And so you had a lot of outfits. At least I can only speak so much for what I've seen on Connery, but a lot of outfits have developed around that concept because it's sort of simple enough that you can easily get newer players into it,
Right.
and effective enough that you're not just grinding into the meat grinder
Right.
constantly.
Yeah. Redeploy into the galaxy, drop a beacon, and fight till you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep, pretty simple.
Yeah. It's simple. It works, and I I see that everywhere that I've played, so it makes a lot of sense. So outfit incentive is a really interesting topic. I wonder if the next way to drive that discussion is just to go down this outfit wars path. And I think what we're coming up on potentially is talking about qualifications.
Mm-hmm.
So there were two phases of the qualification this time around. And that's because midstream RPG stopped and made a change. Um, roughly, um, those changes were intended to shape better Planetside, I think, for people playing the game. Um, so I think most people watching this will know, but just for posterity, an important part of the Outfit Wars was determining via live play on the Planetside servers which outfits would get to compete. In order to get there, you actually had to score points for your outfit in the live game, which you did by capturing bases and doing a bunch of other activities related to base capturing. So the qualification phase was a set amount of time, about a week at the start, as I think what was planned for, where outfits could accrue those points, and number one would be the gold contender, number two silver, number three bronze. After a few days of qualification and points racking up, RPG put the brakes on and decided to make a few changes. I'm going to call it just a couple of them. One of them was, rather than having every single outfit member in a hex count towards Outfit Wars points, they made it so only the top, I think, 10 to 12 of them counted towards it, which incentivized smaller outfits to participate or larger outfits to split up among multiple bases. They also changed it so that some experience sources no longer counted towards Outfit Wars points. One of those being revives, heals, and resupplies, which are a little easier to game. At that point, I think some outfits made different choices about whether to participate or not. I was talking to Madman about Outfit Wars, and one of the major things we discussed is how B-Way was, Bushido Way, was not involved in the Outfit Wars at the start. They decided there was no way they was going to be able to be a fun experience for their outfit by engaging with the system as it was. When that changed, that was just enough for them to jump in. So now, walk me down the path for Recursion of how you guys approach qualification from the start, and what, if anything, changed for you guys when the reset happened.
Well, as you know, we have our stat tracker and we have a lot of data, and our data suggested that we would be competitive at Outfit Wars. Our data suggested that playing as we do, we would be silver tier for NC Connery, and obviously we're multi-faction, so we are always looking at whether that's the best course of action. So we knew we would be competitive just because we're a little bigger than most. If you want to call us an elite fit, let's just whatever we are, we're a little bigger than our usual weight class of people, and so that combined with the opposition's level, like B-Way had a very aggressive opponent in SKL, right? Like one of the largest North American outfits, so they had quite a job. It was a 2-week thing for us, and so we knew we would place, and people were really motivated, and we thought if we tried really hard, we could take gold. So we began from the outset striving to try to take that, knowing full well that if we reached for the stars, we'd grab something. So we knew we'd play in Desolation, not necessarily gold.
Okay.
I think from it's easier to talk about these things in retrospect, I think, than going narratively through like in the beginning. So I think what we know now in retrospect, I'll start from there, is one of the awkward things about the way the Outfit Wars qualification is set up is that you're kind of competing against your own faction, right? And that goes against what ideally I think everyone has an intuition that you would want to, your faction is just a further extension of your team. You have your squad, then your platoon, then your faction. But with the Outfit Wars system, you're competing with outfits that are on your own faction, which means that there are times where, if you want to get more points or increase the disparity between you and whoever you're against, it would actually serve you best to not play in the best interest of your faction, and maybe even sometimes outright handicap.
Sure.
Which obviously doesn't really create good gameplay.
Can you give us an example or two?
Well, being on VS, right? If we had people playing VS, we would purposefully avoid fighting the people on NC, right? Because why would we? If we wanted to get into the Outfit Wars, there was a unfortunate circumstance of NC having just chronic overpop and therefore queues during the qualification period. And so what ended up happening, what we ended up finding, is that just having our people form all of our overflow form a squad on one of the other factions, then just avoiding fighting, just the NC people, we'd actually increase the disparity between ourselves and the people we were, or the outfits we were competing against, which I don't think is really conducive to good gameplay. But yeah,
it definitely sounds a little sideways to what honest outfit competition. I'm still not 100%. I understand the mechanic that you're describing about the multi-faction.
If you have, so basically, you have 3 factions, and if your outfit is the top faction or the top outfit on one faction, right? If that faction does really well, your outfit's going to have to do a lot more caps to maintain that proportion of the pie, so to speak.
Right.
If, however, your outfit is at the top of that faction and that faction is doing very poorly, maybe even getting double teamed, what ends up happening is no caps are happening, the gap doesn't close, and you maintain a lead.
Right, and that points back to the way that the point system favors captures over defense.
I think more so, that's definitely a strong point. And there's also something to be said about like actions per player, just overall player activity, right? If you have 48 people doing nothing but ghost capping, they're going to generate a lot of points with the current system. Whereas if you have 12 people that are doing battle on the front lines constantly, they will likely not even get a single base over the course of, say, 15 minutes. They might get a base or 2 in an hour, even though they are doing, just enormously more than the aforementioned 48 people were doing. And I think that, the fact that that's something that can very easily and clearly happen with the current system is obviously a problem, but that's just my perspective on it, I guess.
Makes sense. Did that change very much when the reset happened, or was that more or less a through line for the whole qualification?
So let's talk about that reset. Now, I think everybody can agree, we were really screwed by that reset. But one thing to talk about is, I think it was a anti-exploitation
Mm,
measure that because one of the things that would happen is when a continent locks, all of the bases go a certain color, right?
right.
And if when a base captures, one of the mechanics is that you get the point. So for instance, it's like, let's say it's 4 points. Well, you get a one time when any base captures, no matter what outfit, you get a one-time point score for the people who captured that base, as far as my understanding. So if Regent Rock gets captured, everyone in the hex would get 4 points.
Hmm.
Now, if a continent locked and there were people on that all those bases that would go blue, they would all get that one-time capture point. And so play outfits with a crazy amount of players could send like
Mm,
they could get like 120 points in 4 minutes with that method, which is
yeah.
crazy amount of
They get a
points.
tone each
So
pond when the continent flips. They get all those points.
exactly. So Rel decided, instead of having, and I'm speculating, instead of having the desolation be ruined by exploiters, and you saw some like 6-man outfits that using this method
Mm,
were getting on those desolation slots. Uh, he did this not to allow smaller, more skilled outfits like B-Way a chance to try to get in the runnings, but did this to prevent exploitation. Also, he pushed it one step towards maybe a better paradigm with the 10 kills per player kind of thing. Those two in combination are what caused the matches that you saw, whether it be DPSO's inclusion or B-Way's
hmm.
inclusion. And so there's a hard, if that's what you're asking, the hard numbers on why this happened. Well, there they are.
Hmm. Well, you guys have the numbers. That's insanely interesting. I had heard about the continent flipping mechanic previously, but I didn't understand that to that grain of detail. Um, did that stay in after the flip? After the reset?
No, and
That was
that's what
fixed.
they were. That was fixed. It was removed. You can no longer dip your toes into 20 bases and get all of them points. So,
Hmm.
uh,
Hmm.
but I think what actually happened is that now that the qualification, instead of being a 2-week marathon, was more of a 5-day sprint,
Hmm.
or maybe a 5-day hell jog. Let's call that. And Shades in them, they said, well, we might not want to do a sprint against 3,000 active members, but we might be able to do a hell jog. And I believe that is why. And I hope they see that pattern, that if the qualification is right, you'll get the right outfits. If the qualification is wrong, you'll get the wrong outfits.
Do you think we got the right outfits?
Oh, Lord, no. But as a first run, I mean, you're seeing. I mean, we're going to talk about the match, but
Hmm.
as a teaser, let's talk about what you saw there. Like, you saw, Zerg fits, or outfits that don't really prioritize training or practicing. You saw them on the test server looking at things competitively. There was people that already do this kind of things. They go on Jaeger, they go to test, but you also saw some of the Zerg fits maybe, looking at their outfits differently. And so I think it created pressure on both ways. It's creating pressure on like the insular outfits that already do a lot of competitive type Planetside to scale up their operations.
Hmm.
And it also took the larger, more inclusive outfits and said, you need to skill up your operation.
Right.
So I think it hit it from both ends. Is it a bullseye? It's way off, but it's in the. I mean, I have faith that the next round will be better.
That's important. That's an important takeaway from this. And if anything, RPG needed to demonstrate during this process, it's that they are able and willing to iterate quickly in a positive direction. Um, a lot of things to respond to there, but um, when we were heading down the path of qualification before the reset, and everyone knew there was exploitation happening, and everyone who wanted to be in the outfit war was either, I don't think anyone was really excited about doing those exploits, but everyone wanted to be in the outfit war. It's important. Um, and my sense of it is that the community was heading into a kind of a dark direction where no one really believed that the outcomes were indicators of very good Planetside being played. And so, if anything, I'm pleased that they jumped in and did something positive to kind of nudge it in the direction you're talking about. I also really appreciate the perspective you and Therum both shared. I think it was Therum about helping. By the way, Zergfit. I know to some people that's kind of a negative word. I think and I hope we're all using the word Zergfit just to talk about our more community focused outfits in Planetside. Um,
Right, the larger
I
outfits that have got a more of a community aspect.
I
You know, my
personally go ahead.
my like the way I describe it, you've got it's a hierarchy, right? Like Zerg fits need to exist in this game, mid fits need to exist in this game. Elite fits, tactical fits, comp fits, whatever you want to call them, they need to exist in the game. It's not meant as a derogatory term. It can come off as derogatory,
right.
but they're all three, and they all three are necessary in this game. And without them, without a Zerg fit, where are you going to get these big battles at? The
Right.
big epic battles where it's just tanks, air, everything coming at you.
I'll go a step further than that and say I think the best Planetside is so long as they don't avoid each other when everyone is zerging. Like if two forces, two zergs clash with each other, that's the best Planetside there is. It's when they avoid each other that's kind of lame, but I don't
And that's the Planetside that most
definitely
people like outsiders really resonate with. Is when you see VODs of people in tanks or planes and enormous galaxy formations, heading into gunfire with tanks all over the place and sunderers and people doing crazy shit. The chaos, the pure sandboxy chaos of Planetside is what calls people in. Um, so yeah, that Zergfit versus Zergfit. I having, I guess I'm just really validating what you guys were saying, and nothing more to add to that. So
in
okay,
that Planetside without their zerg fits.
right, and I think what we were talking about too was also how the direction that these different kinds of outfits were kind of nudged by this Outfit Wars system. The Zergfits encouraged to narrow their focus a little bit, think about what consolidating looks like, and the smaller, more exclusive outfits thinking about, well, what does it look like to open our doors? How do we bring more people in to get more towards that kind of um, right-sized community where people can have a really great time playing the game. Um, Outfit Wars had 48 players per outfit, um, and I don't have a great sense. I'm curious what you guys think about what size of an outfit you really need to be successful in Outfit Wars as it stands today.
That is a
Depends
great
on
question. Go ahead there.
it depends on the server, I think, because there are there's the rough size, but there's also additional factors like specific. Some of the connery I might imagine is there's a lot of Australian and Chinese and Japanese players who when they're in the non-prime time hours, you're doing battle with your tag and they end up getting a base. That's something that a single member or two, that plays in more prime time wouldn't be able to accomplish. And so there's factors such as that. I think the affect just what exactly is the right size of outfit that you want. I think there's a minimum that can be easily established, which is you need to be large enough to be map relevant, right? Meaning to say that your outfit goes and attacks a base, and if it gets even if it gets defended, you have a chance at capturing it.
Mhm.
Whereas, if you alone go and try to attack a base, if several more people show up, they blow up your Sunder. I think there's a lot of people that are familiar with the experience of you spend all the time driving your bus up, trying to start a fight, and then like 5 or 6 people show up and immediately overwhelm you and kill your bus. It's like you're definitely not map relevant, so
Right.
you have to scale up from there. And I think
So map relevance scales with the server you're on, obviously. Probably the time zone you're playing in, like you called out earlier. Like maybe one player can be map relevant in certain times of the day. You know.
Yep.
Uh, so you guys play on Connery. What's map relevant at prime time look like on Connery?
I would say minimum is a squad of people.
So that's 12.
Like that's
12.
Yep. And if that's the minimum that you're going with, you need some pretty exceptional players. I think map relevant with your average group of players would put you somewhere between 24 and 36. And where you start to kind of lean a bit too much into the way of, just having so many players, you're going to get some bases somewhere. It is probably 48 plus, like going over a platoon. I think you start seeing kind of just diminishing returns per player, beyond that 48 mark.
And how strong were you guys rolling during qualification?
Oh, good
We
lord. We
actually were over 48 often, which, like I said earlier, we ended up with queues on our own faction. Entire squad basically unable to log in and play with the outfit, which, for some people, the whole reason they returned was to play with the outfit, and now there's this fat queue sitting in. Luckily, for our specific case, we have a lot of veteran players who have characters on multiple factions, ASP, BR100 characters on multiple factions, and so
Right.
be able to start up a squad on one of the other 2 factions and play Planetside. But I imagine that's not a luxury available to your average player.
Right. To be competent and be battle ready at multiple factions, multiple servers, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So okay, you guys were over a platoon deep. That's what I've seen. I think Bushido Way was around there too. So you guys, I don't remember what the score looked like at the end of the qualification phase. Did you win pretty comfortably, or did you guys have a close contest?
We had a tracker, and we would do, at that point we were so exhausted, we were just trying to do as little as we needed to. And we had averages of all the outfits in competition with us, and we had projections. So it wasn't, because I mean, we're talking, I myself, and I am not even top 10 in Recursion's playtime, did 90 hours a week. So there are some people that really threw themselves at this.
90
and so
hours. That's like three
yeah,
and a
I
half
mean,
days played. It's literally
there's
half the
more,
week.
yeah, half the week.
Yeah.
And there was more people with more than that. There were people who lived this life, lived to win, and we didn't want to make them do any capping besides what they needed to get gold. So we ended with about 100,000 all in
That's
terms of
nuts.
2 weeks, both weeks put together.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of time playing Planetside. I imagine that by the end of that, there were a lot of people who were ready to be done with the game for a while.
Absolutely. Unfortunately so.
And I feel bad for the poor officers, for you guys. I saw this in Bushido Way, where the regulars got to take a couple days break after qualification ended, but you guys, you gotta go into your command tents and figure out how we're going to win this match. How did you guys prepare for
Yeah,
the outfit war after the qualification ended?
we had a lot of strategy meetings. We grabbed all the metrics we could, participation metrics, like performance metrics. We
Very numbers
went to
driven.
Desolation. Well, I think when you get to a certain size, and it's like you can't even really look at things from an individual perspective. You got to kind of look at it from that top end. If anything, is just more efficient. So anyway,
You know what, Sayl?
we went.
There's a lot of people talking right now about the burnout factor. I think we need to give that a little more time before we move on because it's super important. Um, and we'll come back to that absolutely. And excuse me for interrupting you. Um, so 3 days played in a week is obviously too much Planetside. Um, the attitude I saw with a lot of people is this has got to change the qualification phase. People can't be expected to wake up and play Planetside for 12 hours a day in order to be relevant and be in the outfit war. Um, what do you guys see as a good direction to take qualification next time around? What are you hoping to
Well,
see change?
be careful. I mean, desolation may not be for us. I mean, the difference between best practices in qualification, i.e., having a great 48, and best practices for getting to qualification, I'm sorry, to getting to desolation through qualification, i.e., as many people as you can possibly get to cap those bases, is a huge, huge thing. I mean, SKL, like 3,000 members. It's like, that's a big stick for qualification. So,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and like I said, it's from both ends. Like, this may be DBG's way of giving an end game to outfits that train, create, and support new players. And so I believe that, while we could say this would work best for us, we need to also imagine that this might actually be for, the Zerg fits, which is a little sad. And like I said, we've already taken the pejorative off that word, right? When I say Zerg fits, I mean outfits which have more than 48 people,
Mm-hmm.
which could include recursion at some days.
That's right. You guys dabble in Zerg fitting.
That's right.
That's
You're
a
goddamn
that's
right
a
we do.
you brought up a really interesting distinction. It's an assumption that I was making that we could unpack a little bit. Who is Outfit Wars for? Right? We're seeing qualification being dominated uh, just by default by the ones that have the most bodies to throw. But we're seeing the contest itself being most well rewarding of people who have the tightest 48, I think. Um, so I don't know if we've seen any strong communication from Daybreak. Excuse me, listen to me, Daybreak, from Rogue Planet about what they expect from outfits in terms of size. One thing I think I heard from Rel is he did say that he was hoping that this contest would help break up some of the larger Zerg fits into smaller, more right-sized things. Um, we're all biased, obviously, but with that in account, I mean, biased towards the outfit experience we have and that we like. Doesn't it make sense to have Outfit Wars qualification be oriented around outfits that are a similar size that could realistically approach the Outfit Wars match itself?
Right. So like a weight class system
Right.
where you'd have, the bigger outfits fight the bigger outfits, the small outfits fight the small outfits, and the midfits fight the mid. I think that's a good idea for an approach. Rather, if it's going to be effective on live, that's yet to be seen. Currently, it's every man for himself. It's every outfit mixed in with each other.
Yeah.
You get the big outfits, you get the mid fits, and you get the elite fits, and those are all thrown together in a mix. And what an elite fit might consider sound playstyle or a Zergfit might consider as, a sound play style may not be what their opponent considers, best practices, and it causes some disparity in the matches where, like, outfits that generally don't think like, the combined arms initiative where it's, vehicles, air, and infantry working together may not be prepared for Desolation because, of how the map is laid out, how things are done, structured. And so it creates disparity between the Zerg fits, the mid fits, and the elite balls, or the elite fits. And that doesn't, I think a weight class system would be a good idea, but without practice metrics, without or not practice metrics, without beta metrics or anything like that, there'd be no way to really tell if it'd be a good idea. And it feels like, we're already kind of past that stage where we can, backpedal and say, we're going to do a weight class instead, or, anything like that. I'm not even sure how they would, how could you possibly classify, an outfit?
I think there's one thing that needs to be mentioned, and that's just the fact that there seems to be kind of a culture in the game around thriving against asymmetrical odds. Have more of the enemy than there are you equals a fun time. And I think a lot of people strive for that, and only then, if they're not getting, that numerical disparity where they could still, win against numerically superior odds, sometimes people feel dissatisfied. And one particularly toxic behavior I find that just repeats in the community is like first instinct is, to basically pull the enemy down, right? If you lose with the over pop or even pop or whatever pop, the first thing obviously is just, oh, why is what they're doing cheesy or whatever. And it's hard to kind of orient players towards just trying to actually solve the issue with the gameplay mechanics at their display. And part of that is also like, just I think there's some like toxic, unfun gameplay interactions which we can go over if you'd like. By and large, I think a big part of it, nowadays, the interactions between, say, like air and infantry is a lot less toxic than it used to be.
How has that changed? Was that in your perspective?
Just whenever I hear one of the newer players complain about air to ground now, I just tell them about how I remember Zephyr being able to level like your entire squad with a single shot because it had like a 6 meteor blast radius, I think, or something larger. It's just ridiculous. 1 hit radius, by the way. So like a stray shot from a Zephyr back in the day would ruin not just your own but your entire squad's day. You're just sitting in the building.
Sounds fun.
So yeah, that is like just the fact that stuff like that.
And that's changed.
Yeah, it's changed a lot. I think there's still a little bit of fine tuning, but in general, it's nowhere near the ridiculous state of imbalance that it was at before.
To drive your back to your point, one thing to think about is that on Desolation, on test, there's additional hexes, whether those are new warp gates or additional scalable content. I believe that Daybreak is, or Rogue Planet Games is looking at ways to where Desolation can serve multiple, quote unquote levels of outfits. And the other thing to consider is people seem to think that a continent doesn't have a limit, but I believe that the continental pop limit is 334 per faction. So if you looked at live, a continent of live is 334 versus 334 versus 334. Well, how much of that is an outfit war? Well, if you're the biggest outfit in the game, 82% of that continent rides for your outfit. So you're almost playing Desolation from from the live perspective. So obviously, I think like now you're looking at too big, right? Where it's like there's some outfits that are so big they're playing Desolation on live.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, I think there's going to be a logical scale both ways, where an outfit's going to be too large, and the breakup thing doesn't make a lot of sense to me though, because if there's only 3 slots in Desolation, only the 3 most aggressive strategies will get there.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm in a big outfit, that's an aggressive strategy. We have 3,000 players. As long as I can make positive that I'm on that 48, it's good to have all those players. So I don't see how the mechanics as presented would schism ultra large outfits into splitting, thinking that they could get one of those slots from their, say, parent outfit.
Mm-hmm. A point I'm seeing being made in the chat by Madmen from Bushido Way, shout out, is that it might take 3 or 4 seasons for players to start realize that within their 2,000 man outfit, they're not going to get picked to be in the outfit war, and their best chance at it is to try somewhere else. What do you think of that idea?
Yeah, I think the idea that just you'll have, as Disenfranchised pointed out earlier, just these new upstart communities and outfits, providing competition for recruitment with a lot of these Zergfits who, for the couple of years prior, were kind of the only just open and actively advertising outfits on their respective servers. Really, like the competition provided by a lot of the new upstart outfits and communities, I think, goes some ways towards kind of pulling members out of the 2,000 man outfits and maybe creating, as you put it, better Planetside. I could definitely see that. I think there needs to be a little bit more push on the individual level for either like leaders of outfits or officers in outfits to actually teach the newer players and integrate them fully into their respective outfit. Like, I don't even know what that would entail, but I think it's the next piece that ought to move, actually getting these people to go out and be looking for members.
How have you guys
Whatnot.
changed the way that you approach recruitment in front of the outfit wars, or is it more or less the same for you guys?
We went straight to Outback Steakhouse to find every Australian we could.
We're in a unique position, I think, and just we've been around for so long that we're not at all particularly strained for numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a non-issue for us, really. We didn't change much from just the pressures.
Yeah, you guys were already a good size to compete in the outfit war match itself. And as you said, based on your numerical analysis, qualification was going to be okay for you guys at some level. So that makes sense. I wonder if qualification. This has been a really incredible and surprisingly philosophical discussion about qualification, about who are the outfit wars for, and what does qualification tell us about that. I've been kind of waiting to see RPG say something about qualification for the next outfit war. I don't think we've seen any communication or indication of changes. Am I wrong there? Have you guys seen anything?
No, not really. Not since the outfit war actually ended itself.
Do you expect to see a change? How are you guys feeling?
Yes. I think that they saw the problems. I'm not sure remember, they didn't call this season 1. They saw this like preseason alpha or something.
Alpha 1, I think.
They disclaimed it. Yeah, they disclaimed it well. Like, we can't hold them completely accountable for this. And yes, they're changing it, and they did change it in the middle of a season. So to think that they're not going to change it between seasons is crazy,
Okay.
right? Like,
Yeah, I think that definitely they're gonna, they wanted what they wanted more than anything was how this would play out on the live servers, and I think they definitely got their metrics, and they're still going over all that before setting anything into stone.
Right. Better to make the right communication than to make the quick one.
Exactly.
I appreciate that. Well, I'll be watching out for that. I'm very curious to see what lessons RPG feels were learned and what the next nudge in the right direction will be from them. Maybe we can go ahead and start talking about the actual outfit war itself. So, Sayl, earlier I interrupted you when you were starting to talk about how you guys got prepared to fight the big battle. I wonder if you could pick up from where you left off and talking about the command tent experience.
well, so obviously the way qualification went was not the same sort of comms and structure that you would implement into a desolation. And like you said, you had like 4 days. It was like it ended on a Monday night and started on a Saturday. So you know whatever I'm not counting as my strong suit, but however many amount of days we had to prep. And so we know that infantry was our strong suit and we better get into the airplanes and learn. And so we started doing some air training, doing all the meetings to try and figure out, because like he said, we have more than 48, so there's going to be some people on the bench, and so we got to figure out how we're going to do that, what's fair, what would the community accept. So it was kind of like you said, it was like, okay, you just sprinted, now go run down to the store, and it's like that's a tough one. So it was a struggle, but I feel like we did enough work to try and make it a good stream.
Yeah, personnel selection. Um, how did you guys go about that? Was it just one person kind of making individual merit decisions and kind of deciding what they wanted their platoon to look like in the outfit war? How did you go about that?
Well, there's corruption and bribery. Uh, how much
Favors.
they could pay us to get, yes. No, we, like I said, we took this spreadsheet and we took like their participation, how many bases they captured, how long did they play in these 2 weeks, and we put another one, what's their stats, how good are they. Then we had a qualitative, like what does the squad leaders think of this individual, and then the fourth one was like the team. And so we had a positional thing. I linked that to you earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and we tried to find the best players for those positions, and based on that spread, like participation wasn't the alpha and omega, but it was a factor.
Mm-hmm.
What the squad leader thinks was a factor, your stats were a factor.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just tried to make that 3-factor bullseye, for the team. And I think generally speaking, people accepted it. We also had some things where we had some things we wanted, some gameplay changes. Like we wanted the heavies to run lock-ons, and so we would force our heavies on live to get used to lock-ons.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would do a lock-on check. It'd be like lock-on check, and all the heavies would pull out like decimators, and those heavies would get marks.
Oh no!
You didn't do it.
Is your shirt
They
tucked
got the
in?
pilot. They got the pilot to the head is what they.
That's hilarious. So I'm showing the actual roster that you sent over to me, Sayl, here on the stream now. It's got a breakdown of I see Infantry Squad 1, Therum, Infantry Squad 2, Welder, Flax, Air, Armor, and just some breakdowns about class composition here. So this was what you guys arrived at for your roster.
That's correct.
One of the things that you said a few moments ago was getting your guys in the air. It sounds like you anticipated the strength of air in this contest.
Of course, air is probably the most. It's the biggest factor. I mean, you watch any lane smash, great infantry play is rarely enough.
So talk up to me a little bit about what it is that makes air so strong in this format, to your mind.
Okay, that's a great question. Well, first of all, it's mobility combined with the factors of the game. So for instance, on live, you get a certain amount of nanites in a certain amount of time. But in Desolation, you have 75,000 nanites, which means you could pull like 148 reavers side to side, back to back. So that's going to make air even stronger. You can also modulate it. Air is usually very modular, where air to ground is going to be really good at ground, but it's going to struggle against air. Well, now you can modulate very quickly for very little cost, because if like they have a lot of tanks, you're going to be able to put hornets on or whatever you need to do to kind of counter that strategy coming up against you. So between the mobility and the strength of it, and the fact that it's even stronger than it would be in, say, a lane smash, we were well prepared, that we're going to have to deal with air.
I think one thing as well that often gets overlooked with air, and it's really fundamental, is just the fact that whereas your typical ground forces are constricted by terrain, air being volumetric, you can have, say, 50 ESFs all targeting the same tank or infantry, or doorway, what have you. And I'm sorry, not the inverse, but in order to have 50 ground units all targeting the same thing, you need like a very specific set of circumstances. And so air scales really well with just achieving localized numerical superiority, and couple that with the fact that air is the fastest moving units, and they still have decent firepower, and in any saying such as this, air is going to be a pretty big factor. On live, it's a pretty big factor. It's just
absolutely, yeah, it makes sense. Thanks for that explanation. One of the things that I noticed too, saw comments about on the day leading up to the Emerald and Connery contest. We got a chance to see the Soul Tech contest a good chunk of time before, and then the European servers, and then finally we kind of marched west, right? In terms of the time zones and when the contests were happening, and I think a lot of folks were studying those early contests to see what the lessons learned would be. Is that something that you guys did as well?
Yeah, we saw the Emerald match specifically, and we saw what Tack Driver did, GSLD. So, we're going to go over this in more detail, but he found a way using an orbital to create distance between the neutral relics to give him an advantage, and he had an exceptional opener against B-Way, which they were able to overcome, but it was still, when we saw that, we thought, we got to implement that immediately.
Could you break that down a little bit?
Sure. Okay, so they're neutral bases. So let's say that you're getting relic A and they're getting relic F. Well, if I start capturing relic F before they capture relic A, I could then steal relic A with whatever time difference is between these two things. Does that make sense? Maybe I haven't explained that well, but
I'm showing the map on the screen, by the way. You can use that to drive off of.
Sure. So in the screen's case, if you can see, we have an advantage in the timer. So if you have an advantage in timer, you can send all of your guys to steal the relic, which is not quite capped for your enemies, because your base will give you lattice to their relic when they had no chance to get lattice to yours. And you can steal that. And you saw them do that in the Emerald match, and you'll see us do the same for the Connery Gold match. And what was so interesting about what they did there to create that distance, he used an orbital. So I would imagine that would be really confusing. Imagine you're rushing to the base, and in the first 5 seconds, someone uses a precious orbital resource, and you're looking at that thinking, "Why? What a waste! What a noob!"
Is that a misclick?
Right? Like, yeah, is that a misclick? But it was genius, because what it did was they couldn't approach their own relic, and that creates distance in the timer. And once the distance in the timer was established, they could then work on the steal.
It's a snowball type effect.
Yes, and so I was very pleased to see that from the Emerald match.
Right. So I was playing on live, watching the Emerald match as it was happening, and um, helping out the B-Way guys, and coming up from the purple perspective, opposing GSLD, who were playing blue for Emerald. Watching that happen and seeing the whole map light up blue and watch the scores go like the way they did, it was a very tense and scary moment, I think, for me and the squad and a half of B-Way folks who were holding the torch on live. But things changed there. So the strength of the orbital to create space. What else did you learn?
Uh, can't nothing off the top of my head in particular. Uh, the matches we were pretty busy on our own. I mean, the question, if as far as I understand, is you're asking what we learned from their matches going into ours.
Right.
Well, we learned that the opener is pretty important, and we learned, that trick that we implemented immediately. But, we had an hour till we had to play, so we were kind of focused more on getting our own team uh, matriculated into the strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very last second changes are always the hardest ones to implement, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So besides what you managed to kind of glean from your intel, anything else that you want to add about the preparation for the actual contest?
Uh, I guess, like what I mentioned earlier, our overflow being on a different fact. Like a couple days into queue waiting, we decided to just standardize that, and what ended up becoming was, us helping. This was prior to the reset. After the reset, they didn't even need our help at all. But prior to the reset, we were actually mostly tagging up to help DPSO try and get the gold on VS on our server.
Interesting. So you were using some of your players who weren't needed to secure your placing in the on the NC side qualification to help DPSO succeed.
Yeah, that's just due to history between the two outfits and cordial relations and whatnot. After the reset, though, didn't even need our help, in part due to we weren't the only group, I guess, that was kind of rallying around DPSO. And I think with the outcome of the match, it's almost more important to talk about what DPSO did to prepare over what we did.
What's your perspective on how they prepared?
So they had Fool led by Jump Rope Jim, and I gotta give those guys a lot of credit, because basically what they did was they made a bunch of characters, they put in DPSO, they played and leveled those characters during the qualification period, and were, I would say, just absolutely instrumental. That second go around is when I really saw them ramp it up and just knock down cap after cap after cap, into some crazy fights. And the occasional, obviously, I think every outfit during this has had some bout of awful ghost cap. But having the full squad, I think, was just instrumental both in the qualification and in the actual.
So let's shout it out to Fool. Are they is Fool a Connery outfit?
Yeah, Fool/Gobs, led by old Jump Rope Jim.
So Fool folded into DPSO to help promote DPSO. You guys helped DPSO. What's DPSO doing to get all this support?
I think just, they're a long-standing outfit. They've been around since the Helios Connery merge, and we've always had open doors. And for a lot of our respective communities, DPSO's always had like an open door for our members when we might have been particularly inactive for a period.
Mm-hmm.
You know, play with DPSO, and in large part, it's that relationship there. I think that kind of pulled together this rally of a lot of different outfits closer to the match day. Like more outfits got involved, however, weren't too involved with the qualifications, so I can't really say much.
Okay.
I think it's also a cultural thing. On Connery, we try not to break each other down. We try to support outfits, and DPSOs in our wheelhouse. They're about the same size ish. Certainly closer to what we do than virtually anyone. And so it's like, are we really going to focus on those small differences that people think matter, or when we could be like, well, we're both playing Planetside. We're both larger outfits that are dealing with all those same kind of problems together. And so people try to think that they're going to get some salt out of us over this, and it's just not going to happen.
It's very wholesome. It's very planet-sidey. I think that there's a temptation a lot of time to try to boil down Planetside to, one-on-one kind of decisions and contests and outcomes, and you win, I lose, that kind of thing. Um, it's really interesting to see all the different manifestations of this outfit wars, but the fact that you guys were able to jump in and support an ally, who you normally fight against, is very brotherly and very neat. I love seeing it. Um, I'm curious though. So you described yourselves jumping in, Fool jumping in. Um, it sounds like this is part of this reshuffling. Is it your perspective that this is a part of a general reshuffling of the outfits, like, or is this more of just like a temporary arrangement to arrange the best match?
I think partially temporary arrangement for arranging the best match, but I think more importantly, like, well, not so much importantly, but closer to the truth of the matter, I think is just it's hard to tell. It's there's a lot of circumstances that led to it. The fact that we had a squad at a time waiting in queue. The fact that
Right.
Fool was around really. How many outfits on a given server have come and gone, over the course of however many years the game has been out. And just the fact that I think there's sort of the tight-knit nature of that community. I'm not sure what you would call it. This is a community of communities. Is what led to like the decision of, wouldn't it be great to see fucking DPSO in gold? They definitely deserve it for just kind of being the representation, I guess, of quality gameplay that is still accessible to a new player coming into the game. It's not so rigid and exclusive that someone who's new to the game would be completely at a loss, but at the same time it's not just what would you call, like, just being in the same platoon but never communicating, never doing anything other than like just what you could make out in the immediate situation. That's just your typical like Zerg, on live when there's like 96 people going down an empty lane. That's typically what that's like. There's not really much communication. There's no central common goal that people are working towards.
Right.
It's just kind of lane.
Yeah, kind of a low effort, just kind of playing by inertia, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
which
and it's like
isn't really great Planetside.
Yeah.
So first off, shout out to Slatter in the chat, DPSO leader, I believe. So talking a lot about DPSO, what's up? I'm glad to have you here. Sounds like you guys are doing something right. I really like the Connery community you guys are talking about. I was originally a Connery player, but I've been playing more on Emerald lately. So this is educational for me. In the vein of opposition research, we've talked about two sides of the Outfit Wars matchup. I'm curious if you can give me your perspective on the third.
The TR.
Oh God, we don't talk
TR.
about pigs, dude. Like,
The TR is ruled by now Emperor Tiger. Reign is indisputable, and really, we're living in a post-Tiger coronation society on Connery. It's like,
There are things we can't talk about on this stream.
Lest you incur the wrath of the Iron Hand.
The boars will come out and get you.
oh man.
Yeah, how fascinating that phenomenon is. And TR took all three levels of the contest for Connery as well.
That was very surprising, and I think the thing with the Space Pigs getting it, historically, Connery's TR outfits, kind of went towards being like smaller than Recursion, but larger than like your typical like NC or VS midfits, right? And there would be, for the longest time, I would say Connery TR had the healthiest alpha culture of the three factions. I think recently it's kind of decayed a bit. There's actually some interesting points to be made about like how gameplay has kind of influenced with regards to how just TR in an outfit setting plays out. But I think just the Space Pigs having such a large population of players just made them an easy first for the qualification. And then you have like CIK and Hammered, who, yes, I think CIK is probably on the larger end of the paradigm that I just described for TR. It's like open recruitment outfits that still have some standard of quality for gameplay. And you have like Hammered and Space Pigs are kind of unique in their composition, just centered around a type of cult of personality. With Hammered, it would be the Archcraig, and obviously Space Pigs is centered, like all things, around the all-powerful Emperor Tiger.
The self-described big fat pig.
They all use in-game comps, even for Desolation, which is an interesting. I mean, that's the thing about the Tiger is like you think that what he's doing is simple or barbaric, and then you lose.
Don't underestimate the Tiger. What were you guys expecting to see from those guys heading into the actual match before the benefit of hindsight?
Well, like, there's some obvious things to bring up when you compare outfits like this, right? Like, so, obviously with Space Pigs, there's not as many top tier shooters. It's it being what it is. They kind of have just a wide spread of everything, so it's kind of unpredictable. I regard like what they ended up having was a couple Banshee Mossies. Like, I think we expect, like, one of the things that we were ready to fight against was if they just pulled a bunch of MBTs and Prowlers and whatnot, because that's just a common Space Pigs thing online.
Armor column rollout.
But yeah, and so like we had that in our plans, but to their credit, they didn't really do anything that ham-fisted and ridiculous. And I think that's kind of a testament, I guess, to just there being even an objective or a central agreed upon objective at all, kind of creating just better gameplay. That now when we went up to go fight against the Space Pigs in Desolation, we actually could expect them to be pushing for the point more often than not, whereas on live it really is just a toss-up of what the hell is going to be in this 48 to 96 I'm spawning.
Sounds like they were a bit of a wild card.
Oh, you could say that.
Okay. So is it time to talk about the match itself? I think we finally arrived at that moment. So, set the
Sure.
stage for me, gents. It's
Okay.
8 o'clock p.m. on the West Coast. The Connery Gold match is beginning. It's Recursion versus DPSO versus Lord Tiger's Space Pigs. We went over the roster a little bit, but I'm going to turn over to one of y'all to talk me through the experience.
Okay. So you got a lot of time to prep, and that was something. There's a bunch of things you learn immediately from touching Desolation, and that's how much different the game is when you have a silo at the warp gate. In terms of everything, like I said, when I saw 75,000 cordium, I said, this is ridiculous. We can like spam galaxies and never have to get any ants. Is Rel building any RTS here? Or is this just the first pass? But when you add the fact that an infantryman can pull out something from a silo, say like a silo itself for 2,000 if I recall, then pull a reaver, you now have like 2,450 cordium in the first unit pulled. Now we had a few guys that were so bad at flying they kept crashing their reavers. We had like 5 reavers crash. That was
I would have been
the
one of those
first,
guys.
like, it was really bad. It
Okay.
was bad. So our loadout consisted of 2 infantry squads, which all had ESFs. And that's going to be really important. You know, we talked about the importance of the opener. And so we want our opener to be as strong and fast as possible. So galaxies, too slow. We need those reavers. So all the infantry were in reavers. You saw the flex squad were players who can infantry, air, or armor to a general degree, right? They're generalists that are good at some or all of those things.
Mhm.
And so they would be there to help us flex into what the enemy will have. Well, we know that in any opener, the enemy is going to have a lot of air. So all of the flex people were put into, there's 2 sky guards and the rest were basically ESFs, because we're now using the flex to gimmick towards what the enemy is going to present,
Mhm.
which we knew was an overwhelming amount of ESFs. We had a small air squad of air specialists and a small armor squad as well.
Right now on the stream,
And
we're
so,
showing Sir Cereal Box's POV, and he's in a Skyguard right now, right at the start of the match.
right. So we're going to go through that. So you see you're seeing what loadout I just described. And so the object of the 2 light assaults were to gain that timer as fast as possible. Everyone else was to immediately forward themselves to the next base. In Therum squad was sent to point F. Welder squad was sent to point H.
Mm-hmm.
And they all Welder squad in particular had a loadout for each individual infantryman, which had a construction asset, which they were to land and drop as fast as they can. And we actually went on Desolation to practice this opener, and you'll see it come into play with when an AI turret went alive. I think that's something you're going to show as well.
Mm-hmm.
The other teams had a lot of air, and more importantly, that air was mostly pointed at us. And so while the air was able to do their best, they were outnumbered by 3 to 4 to 1. And so our aircraft were really struggling here. But even with not having air dominance, our small armor squad was still able to keep the aircraft from air to grounding them to death.
Mm-hmm.
We actually had a huge problem here in that one of our squad leader for the armor squad DC'd,
Oh no.
and we were unable to talk to the vehicles. But more importantly, we didn't know that this happened until a recursion who was watching the stream told us. And so a lot of times we were trying to direct the vehicles and unable to do that. And our takeaway from that is just how brutal it is to go from a qualification loadout to a desolation loadout in 4 days. We had no time to practice the comms and to see a catastrophic failure.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing that happened was that our air terminal on the west side stopped working, and so
It
a lot
stopped
of the
working, like it
people,
bugged out.
yeah, bugged out. So a lot of the people were like, we're out of cordium. So we send a bunch of the flex players to go farm cordium, only to see that the silo is like mostly full.
Oh,
What is
no.
going on? And trying to troubleshoot this until we figure out just use the other terminal. So
And the
that
thing
was a
is, people
huge
got to
problem.
understand too. This is a short match. 500
Right,
points
and
rushes up on
you
you.
can't map pool. You can't map pool with that terminal being. So our pilots would have to spawn in and physically run to the next air terminal to pull their airplanes.
So imagine if the air was a huge catastrophe for us. Nonetheless, our armor, while unable to be told what to do, were pretty much unbreakable in the middle. And there's a big meme going around where Megatron ran over some infantry, but the reality of that situation, if you actually watch the entirety of the clip, she's quickly removed by armor and the people are res. So that really wasn't, their armor projection really wasn't the problem. It was the air and our inability to merge our armor, which was the only thing we had, and our anti-air with the infantry. And of course, both teams having a majority of their population, next to our warp gates, when we would pressure one, the other would come and hit us from the back. And they have there's a Connery strategy. Those that live through the let's call it Asian invasion. When Soltek, there was a strategy that the Asians do a lot, where they just double team one team until like 30 minutes before the alert is over, because that team having 5% can no longer do enough to win, right?
Mm.
And so I believe that Slatter employed a cynical but very Connery strategy where both teams wanted to try and make it impossible for us to have any chance of winning. And by doing that, they would then play amongst themselves. And so, while that's not my favorite thing, it's definitely Connery. And
The
so we
double team,
suffered.
huh?
I think it's pretty clear that was part of it. But then again, the outcome wasn't what anyone expected, I would think.
So, did you go into this expecting to be double teamed? Sounds like you did.
We did, and not only that, our strategy, as that opener shows you, I mean, we stole a base from the Lord Tiger, and his wrath would be upon us, thereafter. So, we almost invited the double team as well. And the reason that is because, our expectation was that we could because of the how close the middle bases are, say from G to H, you're going to be able to, with an armor squad, because armor is very slow. It's the slowest form of travel, right? Because, infantry can be in airplanes. So we wanted to, create that middle where we're balled up, getting double teamed, because we expected it would happen anyway. So why not, lean into it?
And you
that
wanted
was
to
our
pick your
strategy.
position. You wanted to be balled up in the middle, where
Exactly.
you're not getting hit on your back line, but right up against where you want them.
And we had construction assets up. We had armor that stayed there the entire time, despite being told to help go secure other things, because they couldn't hear us, and we didn't know that. So, and this, like you said, it's 15 minutes. So by minute 12, all this was figured out. And once the double team let us breathe a little bit, you saw that we were taking 4 bases. Had that match lasted 10 more minutes, we might have been able to do some real work there. But what was surprising was the IVI strength of Fool and Jump Rope Jim on Relic H. Like, I don't think they really know what would have happened. I mean, we had F, we had G, we had A, we had B. Had we gotten H, had we just grabbed it, we would have, with construction, an armor ball that was not moved the entire map, stayed in those two relics probably the whole time. Instead, DPSOs, the team that they produced, kept us off our toes, kept the pressure, and Tiger was just backstabbing us every time he could, which is his royal prerogative.
It's peak Planetside, man. Disconnect, miscommunication, double teaming. So
Nothing bad can happen.
this
It's a disaster.
this kind of pulls back to the whole idea, like the whole intrinsicness of the three-sided format to Planetside. Is there a part of you guys that wishes this was a one-on-one, or are you happy with the three-sided thing?
There's lots of people that do, but one thing I'd say is that there's ways to make the point system try and rein that in. Like, let's say only the player with the most bases gets points. And so let's say Tiger has 5 bases, getting 3 points per second. Well, DPSO wants base capture, so they'll put pressure on him. Like, there's gameplay ways where they can make this not a thing.
Go ahead. I think the 3-faction setup is, with regards to it being a one-on-one, and I think that would actually be like, I almost feel like it would probably be kind of lame, just because it's like, politics would dictate the match of, whichever team can stack harder is basically going to win. Whereas if it's a 3-team match, I think there's some room for, a side that has less capable infantry or air or armor to try and leverage some strength that they might have, or find some way to cloud a victory. And it keeps the game from being reduced to just whoever can optimize for, most firepower with least damage received, where at that point it's like, just stack your team with the most capable people, etc. And that's kind of a boring game to play, to be quite honest.
Yeah, it's not Planetside. And when I've said that word a few times, I think we all know what it means, but maybe it bears elaborating on. Ever since the beginning of Planetside, I started back in the beta for Planetside 1 many, many years ago. Ever since it started, the 3-faction mechanic has always been important. It's always important that whenever you're engaging an enemy at a base, there's a possibility that you're gonna get reamed from the side by the other faction. There's gonna be fights going on at adjacent lanes that are gonna pull people off the fight. Or fights are gonna end that are gonna result in a flood of players to one side or the other. Planetside is not a fair game. Would you guys agree with that?
Absolutely.
And you're okay with that?
That's what makes it endlessly novel.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
Fighting asymmetrically, how do you, let's say you're a 12-man squad, how do you fight against the 48 to 96 pigs that are about to encroach on your position?
It's a lot of fun. Like
talking about the
presence of
point holding meta of just packing a squad.
Not even necessarily the point hold meta. How can you battle them like on the same level that they're presenting? How can you bring the force of 96 plus without actually having 96 plus people? I think that factors into a lot of how live continent plays. Is some people like the numbers, some people like the point holding, some people like the gal drops, the Valks. Other people's like to fight all of that, and it may not be fair, it may not be balanced, but it really is fun. Just knowing that at the end of the day, you're probably going to lose this fight, but I'm going to make it as bloody as possible.
Yeah, just trying to. Yeah, it's just just the few against the many and all that. Those fixtures just make for a very fun experience, I think. situations, and I think there is a flip side to that. You know, players that are going up against, like if they have 3-1 and they're still losing, it's like at that point, there's some degree of get good, but I think there's also some level of like, if you just have a bunch of veterans on one side and everyone else on your side's a new player, then obviously like ain't gonna be too great. But something to be said about what would you call like skill stacking? I don't know what you would
Disparity between the factions.
yeah, it's like
if every veteran was on, let's TR, no one of veterancy was playing on NC or VS. There's going to be a disparity of skill between that faction and the rest of the server,
which might outweigh the disparity in numbers that might exist. In fact, almost certainly will, just because I think people kind of, especially veterans, really underplay how confusing this game is at the start for a lot of new players.
I still find it confusing. I played it for 1,000 hours. I don't know what my excuse is, but
it's like
I'm like for me, like the whole vehicle game is completely bewildering. Construction is a mystery. I put 1,000 hours into playing basically an infantry side, and I'm kind of like a barely competent like 2 KD light assault. That's like what I do. Light assault's my thing. But
you mentioned KD.
We had a lot of players who this was the first time they've dropped construction, like trying to tell one of the best players in the game how to drop construction because they've never done it.
Time to construct some pylons, baby.
Yeah, like they didn't understand. Where do I pull this from? Like the questions you get from like a player that's like famous or quote unquote it was incredible. The ignorance.
When I was practicing my opener, we had 2 or 3 people like, how do I place it? Like, what do you mean? How do you place it down?
I guess one thing you mentioned there, just bringing, defining yourself as a 2 KD assault, right? It's like, by definition, there's got to be some people out there that, are under a 1 KD, so you can get that 2 KD. And yeah, I think that's just one thing in particular, like KDR and the fixation on KDR, which is probably an old can of worms, but just I think there's entirely too much fixation on that number in particular, even still.
Yeah, it's a very easy number to look at. And the idea of like the 2 KD or 2.5 KD heavy is kind of a meme at this point, because that number's been wrung so dry over the years, I feel like.
Well, that's how you tell who's right and wrong on Reddit.
Exactly. But that's why I like having conversations at this level. We get to go places that other formats might not get to. This conversation has ranged up and down and broadly, and we're not done yet. But Planetside is a huge game. It's a deep and wide sandbox, and it really deserves detailed discussion like this. I'll be honest, like I knew you guys were kind of nerdy, but I had no idea the level of analysis and statistics you were going to bring in. It's kind of remarkable, and I mean that in a positive way.
What's your KD? You just
you meet me on Jaeger real quick. We'll talk about this.
We appreciate the compliment. We appreciate the compliment. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad, because it's given earnestly. Okay, let's figure out where to move this discussion next. Outfit Wars, we talked about the lead up to it, the qualification. We talked about the match itself, some of the fun politics, the nature of Planetside. Maybe the next thing to go to is takeaways. So very simply, did you guys think that Outfit Wars was successful?
Absolutely. I think that the community, has adapted. Lots of outfits merged or did some action. Lots of people got involved. Tons of people watched. Like we finally have a direction we can all go to, whether it be my outfit or the pigs or SKL. Like, we're all marching towards something, and instead of it being pure sandbox, like maybe you got to learn how to fly now, because maybe you got to learn how to put a construction thing down. I mean, that's what our guys had to learn. So I believe that this is a huge thing for the game. I think that the match we put on was interesting. It was surprising. I didn't much care for the Cobalt match. It was just sort of like they were stomping their
That was the very
enemy so
one-sided one,
badly.
right?
Yeah, and the enemy got so demoralized that they would just fight each other for the 5 minutes of fun or whatever. That's my analysis. And
Why did
so,
that happen?
by
I think that's something that happens on live from time to time if one faction is too heavily stacked, and it just makes the game rather uninteresting. I
It's
think.
not. I don't think it's enjoyable from anyone's point of view. I mean, sure, it might have been fun for that, but imagine if you just kept doing that.
I imagine
After the fifth or the
not even.
sixth. Like, I mean, it doesn't sound fun to me in the first place, but for some people, being able to completely and totally destroy your opponent, that might sound fun, once or twice.
Farming.
After the third or fourth time, it gets stale, it gets boring. It's like, do you really want to continue to kick sand in a child's face on the beach, or do you want to, like, I don't know, surf or play some volleyball? Like, if you go to the beach just to kick sand in people's eyes, like, after a while, it's not going to be fun. People aren't going to like you. But that's my take on it. My personal take. I don't think it was fun for. I don't think it'll be fun for anyone in that situation if they keep doing it. Eventually, no one's going to want to play on the Cobalt one. So there has to be some counterbalance to that. Otherwise, people just won't sign up. It'll just become a relic. Because obviously, if you're
That
winning, go ahead,
goes-
there.
That goes both ways as well, right? Like they need to create some incentive for the players that were on the stack team to actually spend. I think this touches back on the point I made earlier. Like the next step, I think, is just figuring out the gap between like a veteran player and creating some value out of new players and maybe less capable players or what have you. Like bridging that gap, I think would be really important. Just keeping
Gameplay as a whole, I
Honestly,
think.
the gameplay on its fundamental level is like to keep it interesting. Honestly,
Yeah. And the thing you need in a sandbox, any gameplay that is sandboxy, is some kind of a goal, something to unify around. And if anything, it seems to me that Outfit Wars gives something very tangible and very agreed upon by everybody as something that's worth pursuing, which gives the rest of the experience you have in the game meaning. And it gives you something to strive for or bounce off of.
and I think it's along the same avenue as the outfit resources, right? Like providing a common goal for a bunch of people lets them structure their gameplay, in a way that wouldn't be possible unless they all got together prior. And this is how outfits before the implementation of these systems kind of function, just purely as a social apparatus of people that like, oh, we like doing, this particular thing. And, that being like the sole common factor between all of them, like just makes it difficult for growth of that community or even, healthy community interaction between them and, say another community where, just
The other community doesn't necessarily think the thing they're doing is a good idea.
Just the fact that that's not so much a block anymore, I think, is big factor. Like,
And I really appreciate the emphasis that y'all are placing on the community ties, not just within an outfit, but between outfits. I hope that
Right.
Outfit Wars continues to do a good job in some way of encouraging that. Although it It's not what you might immediately think of to have folks ringing for friendly outfits to
If I
qualify.
could interject, I can interject.
Go ahead.
It's not currently doing a good job. I think we gotta, there's work to be done on that. But it's doing a job, which prior to this, there wasn't anything there. There wasn't other than just the fact that, just by understanding the gameplay mechanics, you could exclude people from playing the game, restrict their agency, and kind of coerce them towards playing like you, through that. Like, there wasn't any way that you could just get people to play towards a common objective without a lot of pandering and politicking and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I think, something may not have been brought up a whole lot is the effect that the qualification has on the outfit's server culture and its communities that it occupy it. Something needs to be that needs to be addressed or looked at would be, an outfit may not believe that so and so belongs there because they got there through ghost capping or things they don't think, are skilled play or anything like that. Whatever they believe is not skilled play, but the devs need to find a way to set, a way for every outfit to acknowledge that this is the way you need to get there. And I think something I noticed during the first qualification was the level of toxicity between, inter outfit toxicity became ever increasing. People were more tensious around, or they had more tension around each other. Outfits were less likely to respond to other bases to defend. So I think live play suffered in a way during the qualification period because, what incentive does, like, let's say Recursion have to go and defend so and so's base? There's no incentive. There's no reason to do it. So as a whole, what you oftentimes saw was outfits, holding up, attacking, and then defending only their territory, and it would leave some interesting shapes on the maps because you would see where like a certain outfit held all their territory and allowed everything else to go.
The RB recursion.
And I think, yeah, exactly, and that's something I think that needs to be looked at. It needs to be addressed because otherwise, I see outfits turning on one another and quite frankly,
it's not sustainable, I don't think.
Yeah, it comes cutthroat.
Like, they need to realize, like, right now it does a job of providing common context and the goal for outfits to actually structure around. What they need now is to align that with what's fun in the game, which is, engaging in fights and, battle and whatnot. Because right now, like, it doesn't do a very good job of that. It incentivizes a lot of ghost. And one thing to think about is just how ghost capping starts in the first place, right? Like, it's kind of interesting looking at, as a player that's played since launch, right? I remember being in a public platoon and having somebody talking shit to me because I apparently didn't know how to ghost cap properly. And his words were, yeah, like, back.
You're doing it wrong, man.
Whoa, he was a lot more belligerent than that. He was very angry about my inability to ghost cap properly. But the reason why ghost caps happen is because nobody shows up to defend. Otherwise, like, you need to do the action which would eventually become a ghost cap in order to actually get fights started at times. That's just the nature of the map. But it's like, if no one shows up, well, you ghost capped. And it's like, it's become kind of a derogatory term just because, there have been outfits historically that, in order to try and achieve a cap, kind of avoid fighting, And I think that's really one of the things is, now that they have the structure to incentivize outfit behavior and all, incentivize those outfits to fight. Yeah, on more than just one occasion in Desolation, like, it should be fighting nonstop online. And that will see, like, the best gameplay, and if they can get it right, just the best type of, I guess, community feedback within these outfits. It's like, we often I shouldn't say often, because relative to say something like wild cards or space pigs, we don't have anywhere near as much new player intake, but often we'll grab a new player and try and show them the game. And the moments that get them hooked, several of them, by the way, are now ASPBR 100 over the past like year or two. And the thing that gets them hooked is just like the moment where you can see the enemy, and it's like there's a bit of trading shots and all that. It's not complete shit show yet. And then it just the two forces clash, and it's just an absolute breakdown. And it's like whoever had the best preset positions and the best like most discipline in that type of shit show will prevail. And those are the moments, like just time and time again, as you would put it, just the most Planetside moments that get people hooked on the game. And I think it's really when there's not enough of that, and players end up spending an hour or two trying to create that situation via ghost capping, all that. Those are the demoralizing moments where I think people get really disillusioned with the game.
An interesting counterpoint. Some people talk about Elo and how they want, Elo. It's not fair that they have to fight really veteran outfits sometimes. Well, if you are attacking a recursion base, recursion wants those points per second, and so we're going to defend it like lions. If you attack maybe one of our allies' bases, we probably won't really show up, and if we do, we'll show up with some like tepid response only to be fighting boredom. So it did create somewhat of a soft elo system where if you wanted to take a base and you see the outfit tag on the base, you know that that outfit will respond disproportionately.
Yeah.
That's a interesting point, yeah.
So
That's something I really didn't think about.
if you guys could suggest the qualifications you'd like to see for the next round of Outfit Wars or a future round of Outfit Wars, one that was tailored towards the kind of Planetside that Recursion liked to play, let's say before even Outfit Wars came around, what do you think kinds of changes could you suggest?
To bring it back to my original statement, it's an MMO FPS, and lots of MMOs require players to show up for 2 to 3 hours and kill a big dragon. It's called a raid, right? And I think that would be a good way to do this for Planetside, to put like a 3-hour times frame, a couple times a month for the qualification period. Now I believe no amount of stats, whatever stat he uses, no matter how smart it is always going to dumpster the gameplay, because context is vitally important. And he can do things like remove off-continent capping. He could do things like remove off-hours capping, but it's never going to solve it in its entirety.
When you say
And
he,
so
you mean Rel?
oh yes, that's probably, yeah,
And
the team.
let's all acknowledge RPG. Rel the most visible. Lots of
Right,
hardworking
right.
folks there.
Right. I apologize for that. So their team, no matter what they do, are never going to hit the bullseye. And this is from an outfit with a lot of numbers. I mean, we could have done this ourselves, right? If we could like have made a recursion score where if you're playing well, capturing bases, putting yourself in challenging situations, here's your recursion score. There was no metric that properly captured being good at Planetside. And so we have these bad ones like KD. Getting off topic and back onto the topic, no matter what he does, it's not going to be a bullseye. Therefore, limit the exposure. Make it a few hours serially, maybe every day for a week, but only like 3 hours, so that there is no burnout and players can, have a life and still play their game. Because a lot of us, maybe 7 years ago, we were college kids or we were people, without jobs, but now we're 7 years ahead in our career and we cannot live that life anymore. God bless.
Respect. From a observing perspective, I also think that the idea of having qualifications be focused into narrow chunks, like 2 to 3 hours, like you suggested, is it's a lot easier to present um, with to people who don't yet know Planetside. You could have some of the big streamers out there, and you guys know them. We showed some of Commander Series' content. Archie, Winter Gaming, a lot of folks who casted these. Shout out to those hardworking guys. Could help promote the community by actually streaming this qualification gameplay, where I don't really think there was much to show this time last time around in terms of showing off the game. So I like that aspect of
Right.
it a lot.
I think qualification brought out the ugly side of Planetside. And, I think a 3 hour to 4 hour qualification period would, you put it at the prime time of the server, you you exemplify what Planetside is, right? Because you've got all these players playing and they're all trying to qualify. I think that is what needs to happen, in my opinion. That seems like the most logical step would be to do a qualifier of 3 or 4 hours at the prime time of the servers and just play. It's it's not it's very hard to digest that you need to be up for 9 hours late at night doing, not Planetside things. And it's just not, it's not conducive to good gameplay, and it's not conducive for longevity of people doing it.
Do you know how much we learned about Australia? Like seriously, like I mean I learned a new language. I learned about Australian banter. I've gotten insults I don't even understand from our friends over at Surge and those Australians, and then the people in the Recursion now.
It's a whole new world I need to learn about.
Well,
Aussie slang, huh?
when you're on like hour 7 and it's like 5 o'clock server, weird things start happening. You're on hour 7, you've encountered everything you think to expect, and then something even more strange and otherworldly happens in game, and you
And
just
somebody's talking to you about Fosters.
Yep. They begin speaking the language of the tiger, like it just all falls
The
apart.
toiga.
Toiga.
Okay, so I like the idea of qualification raids. Are points still the best way to win those raids, though?
As in base captures,
Well,
or
Sayl called out that there's no one number that you can ever really objectively say, this is the best Planetside. But in a way, the point system for qualification kind of is doing that. Is there an
They have to do
alternative?
something.
Well,
No,
I think
they got it. It's going to be ugly but if it's ugly for 3 hours, it's no problem.
Sure. It's all about the people, all about the human element. I respect that. I mean, if they just fixed that, I think RPG would get a lot of pats on the back.
I think it's one thing is like a lot of people always bring up playing the objective or whatever. It's practically become a meme, right? Of people like self-aggrandizing over being objective players, or vice versa. Just self-aggrandizing over not being objective players. And really, I think a bit too much emphasis insofar as like the objective having meaning. It's like the objective is just a rule that everyone agrees to, and you need it for something to fight over. And insofar as that might produce unfun elements, I think that's something that RPG should look at. Like with the way qualification does it, I think one thing to maybe look at is some incentive for defending, and not just your own base, but a faction base, and
Right. Because currently,
maybe having
if you're defending, you're wasting your time.
insofar as qualifications. Well, it depends on what faction, actually. Yeah, and that's where get back to like the multi-faction thing. That's another dimension to this problem.
Well, the game stratifies defenses by a reset capture followed by a flag being capped the other way. So say, what does a defense mean? Well, if you're in a biolab and A is taken, but only A, and you go flip it back, you then get a defense. Now, there was a SOE Live Tournament 1 where you did get captures for defenses, and those it was very exploited. So I'd be very careful what you wish for here.
Well, I would think like I think that's a given, right? Like you want to defend, you look at the map and press one of the little green buttons. But if you want to attack, you actually have to bring a spawn up and do a lot of prep work for it. And I think like just they've incentivized attacking. Now they need to put similar incentive for defending. And I think like perhaps limiting the amount of points you could get for defending, might be something valuable.
Yeah.
Maybe a cooldown once you start a defense time. I'm not sure what really they could do mechanically because there's limits to API and whatnot.
Right. Something that would
I think
reward
that
the actual defending of allied territory that on the map looks useful, but that is not imminently exploitable, like you're calling out. So, raids, 2 to 4 hours. Some way to incentivize defense, potentially, that's not exploitable.
Or even not so much. Go ahead.
Nope, go ahead.
Well, I think it's not so much about incentivizing defense. I think that's the most obvious way. But like, just promote that whatever you are doing, right, it would ideally involve capturing a point, but in addition to that, you are engaging the enemy, right? Like, find some way to limit ghost caps and maybe adding something like, a point capture multiplies your previous however many points you were getting by just playing the game, kills, resupply, whatever, multiplies that by some value for getting the capture. Like something like that, I think would go a long way to just making sure that all of the effort and whatnot goes towards the actual game and not towards subverting it through just avoiding fights and whatnot.
Yeah, it's a tough problem. And in a game that is defined by having so many options, so many counters, so many ways to play, the big old sandbox of Planetside, not an easy problem to tackle.
Yeah. I think the fact that there's a variety of playstyles, is absolutely fine because, and with just the way the mechanics work, it's like by knowing the mechanics, you can just restrict other players' agency, which, insofar as capping a point's concerned, this is, why kills matter
right
in base captures and all that, is if you just out aim them or out compete them in infantry and you clap them, they're not going to be able to step on the point to cap it. It's pretty damn simple. And so it's, what comes beyond that is like, all right, well, now if they're beaten in the IVI game, right, well, maybe they'll, armor or air, or they'll figure out some way to up their infantry game. And, from that process I just described, you get some structure to gameplay. Like, it's not, I think, complete chaos, though it can often feel like it in a given moment. I think like it really just starts with get people to fight, and it's like from there they can kind of just let it run its course, and then you'll also start seeing probably certain things being overpowered from that, if they're just unstoppable compared to what their alternatives or counters might be.
Sure. All good points. So, what's next for Recursion? Are y'all excited about the next season of Outfit Wars?
We're playing Space Pigs.
Absolutely, we.
What was that you said, Therum, about Space Pigs?
Playing for them.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Tiger demands it.
So
everyone is.
The Toyga sucked you up, brought you into his army.
UPSO is within the Space Pig. We're all but Space Pigs now.
We were paraded around the Space Pigs HQ like some Roman procession. we're not part of the army. We are the slaves.
The name Tiger is now analogous to Caesar. Caesar once was. I'm hoping, that when the old Max bastard passes away, I get to become the next Tiger.
Well, so are you planning? So okay. Jokes aside, though,
I'm
are you
sorry.
planning to
Yeah.
participate in the next Outfit War?
Yes,
Actually.
yes, absolutely. This is a great thing for the game. We want to go at it. If they think that killed us or we're down and out, they're sorely mistaken. Do we sound demoralized or unpassionate to you? Like you're gonna see us next season and the season after that. So, we're coming for Tiger's crown.
There it is. There it is, ladies and gents. Recursion, Outfit Wars Season Alpha 2, I suppose. Maybe we'll get to see Recursion come back up against the Space Pigs. That would be delightful. I didn't know Lord Toyga very well before all this went down, but I'm looking forward to seeing more of that action. Recursion, Sayl, Disenfranchised, Therum. This has been an amazing conversation, examination, debrief, and a philosophical examination of Planetside as a whole. I've enjoyed the hell out of it. I think that we are at a pretty good point with this conversation, and maybe it's a good point for us to wrap up. So, what I want to do is give each of you a chance to give us a parting word. And if you have a social media or something you'd like to promote, you should feel free to go ahead and drop that in. Starting with Sayl.
www.spacepigs.com.
Space Pigs. Disenfranchised.
Recursion.tk.
Got anything for us there?
Not much. Just click heads and do battle.
Click heads. Praise Toyga. Recursion.tk. Ladies and gents, thank you.
No, not recursion.tk. Recursion.recursion.tk. That's the super secret website.
Okay. I'm going to try to fit that into my my
Recursion
brain.
TK is now property of the Space Pigs.
Hopefully someone in chat can actually write that out for me so I can remember. Well, this has been awesome. Thanks for joining me on Basementside. I think I definitely need to grab your guys' thoughts at the end of the next season if you're game. And looking forward to more Planetside at its best.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And thanks those on the Twitch chat who've been
Thank
hanging
you.
out with us. Lovely time. From my basement to yours, have a great night, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.